Welcome back into Exit 99 Sports. As always, I'm Caleb DeLoach, and now, as you're watching this, happy belated Easter. Good way to cap off a very good week, a nice week, as I'm going to get into in the spring sports calendar. A lot of action going on here in the area. A lot of action. A lot of good games going on. A lot of competitive ball games. Some very big time rivalry games, big matchups. So, and then some big time performances by individuals this week as well. So, a lot to get into, and I'll just kind of jump straight in talking about this past week. And I will start on the baseball side of things. This past week, Monday, April 14th, where we're starting at. Busy day on the diamond for a couple of teams here in Cape County. Notre Dame took on Marion. They got beat there 8-2. They led early on. They took 2-1 lead after the first inning. Then things kind of started spiraling. Pretty good Marion team coming over from Illinois. Notre Dame, pitchers unable to kind of slow down their offense. Sam Gata played well. Went 2 for 3, had an RBI, but too much firepower for Marion. And speaking of firepower, I know I'm going to get to the big, maybe, upset of the week, but, the story of the week for me personally is Saxony played Ellington and beat them 30-11 in baseball. They scored 14 runs in the fifth inning alone, and in the ball game and in that fifth inning, Braden Moore raked. The kid had an out-of-body game. Absolutely phenomenal game. He's been playing at the next level, but, the stat line he put up, insane. 4 for 6, 4 home runs, 14 runs batted in. Bonkers. 14 RBIs. That's a new Misha record in a single game. It's the 7th 4-home run game all-time in Misha history. He hit 2 grand slams in one inning there in that fifth inning to, rack up 8 RBI there in one inning. Crazy. Only the third time that's ever happened, having 2 grand slams in an inning in Misha history. Insane. It's one of the best performances you'll ever see. Probably the best performance you'll ever hear of, see. Almost in any sport. I don't even know what the equivalent would be in other sports. To 14 RBIs, 4 home runs, 2 grand slams in one inning. Shout out to Braden Moore. You get the unofficial Exit 99 Sports Player of the Week, like gold star, smiley face sticker. Crazy. Insane. An insane game. So shout out to him. Shout out to Saxony, 32-11. Kai McDowell, 4 hits in the ball game. Just an insane offensive explosion by Saxony, and led there by Braden Moore. Like I mentioned, probably the big one in Cape County, the big Exit 99 rivalry, Cape versus Jackson. And Cape Central got off the schneid. First win versus Jackson in 8 years, won 5-4, walk-off single in the bottom of the 7th by Christian McNew. Good performances all around, especially for the Tigers. Keegan Palmer played very, very well. He got the start. He went 5 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 4 strikeouts, 4 earned runs. But he also went 2 for 3 at the plate. And it was a good game, especially if you're a Tiger fan. Cape played really well. They had timely hits. They got people on base. And the big difference maker for me, I wrote down the biggest difference in the game, in my opinion, was defense, especially on the infield. Jackson had some issues in the ball game, getting outs when they, when the ball was hit to him on the infield. Cape Central, very, very clean game, fielding the ball. Keegan Palmer pitched very well. Excuse me. Palmer pitched really well. He got, a lot of weak contact, a lot of ground balls, and his team took care of business there behind him. So that was the big difference in that one. And, hey, a couple of wins against Jackson by Cape and Notre Dame for the first time in X number of years, a lot of years. So some teams kind of getting the monkey off their back, a lot of revenge against Jackson this year in baseball. Maybe the Indians a little bit down, you can say, especially after I read off some of their results later in the week. But yeah, big win there for Cape Central. They're kind of getting things turning in the right direction right now. They're winning some ball games right now. But started out pretty rough. I think they started out 6 straight losses on the season. So, I mean, getting to the point now where they're beating Jackson, they're being competitive in ball games. They won 4 of their last 6. They beat Dexter, Park Hill Central, Jackson, and we'll get to that at Kennet as well this week. So, Cape's playing really well. Another first-year coach situation. Mentioned like Keegan Palmer, coach's son, Matt Palmer's first year there as the head man at Cape Central. So, maybe kind of getting some positive momentum. That's kind of the hope, in my opinion, at least for Cape Central as the season goes on. And a big-time win there over Jackson. And then you had another pitcher's duel. Notre Dame falls to Poplar Bluff 1-0. TJ Bolin was the starter for the Bulldogs. He pitched incredibly well. They just couldn't get the big hit when they needed it. And that happens. It's way, baseball is just one of those sports where it's not easy. There's nothing easy that happens in the game. So they had men on base. I saw they hit into 2 6-4-3 double plays. Ball just didn't bounce their way that day. 1-0. Lose to a good Poplar Bluff team. They're going to be tough out for everybody here in the SEMO Conference. And then closing off the area, Saxony once again, what was that, 30 on Monday. And then on Tuesday, they play East Carter County. Put up 17 on East Carter, 17-2 over the Cardinals there. East Carter, just mashing with 47 runs in 2 days. Insane. But we get to move on to Wednesday. Jackson was able to bounce back from the loss, go on the road to Seckman, I believe a district opponent, and come up with a 7-1 victory. It's not your traditional 7-1 victory because it actually was 1-1 going into the 8th inning. Jackson exploded there in the 8th inning. Their guys stepped up how they needed to. Drew Parsons started them, or got the starting nod in that one. 6 innings, only 1 earned run. He had 3 walks, 5 hits, but pretty good outing. Ryan Turlington came in, closed out the deal for Jackson. Peyton Kite, Bradley commit, big-time player. 3 for 5, a triple, 3 RBIs. What you want to see out of him. I also saw Keegan Bregman's been hitting well. He had 2 hits in that game. Matt Carter had 2 as well. Notre Dame, on the flip side, the struggles kind of continuing for the Bulldogs. They play Valley Catholic. Excellent small school. You can't just be like, oh, what are you doing losing to Valley Catholic? Because Valley is, one of those teams. They're consistently every year. They have guys. They've had 30 Baslers and Fallerts just killing people in baseball and football for years and years and years. So that kind of continued. Notre Dame fell 14-4 against Valley. And Saxony, the offense kind of ran out. They played Kelly, lost that one 10-2. Jason Sparks had a couple hits in that ball game, but not a lot going. And then kind of, the pitching got away from a little bit, and then, there was no 30 runs coming up behind it that game. So Saxony does finally drop one, starting out the week 2-1, though. Pretty good week for the Crusaders. And then something I mentioned last week, first I'll say, I mentioned earlier, Cape went on the road. They played Kennet. Kennet, not the, state champion level team that they were, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But still a solid program, a team that's used to winning a lot of ball games. Tough to go down there. Cape did. They went down 9-6. And like I said, Cape's now won 4 of 6 at that point. So Tigers playing really, really well. I've seen articles written about them in SEMO Ball. Hey, are they turning things around? Matt Palmer's getting things going. I hope so. I root for every team here in Cape County area to do well. And, Cape started out a little slow, like I said, but it's nice to see kind of things going in the right direction. And like I was alluding to, I mentioned last week how Jackson baseball was going on the road and up to Columbia, playing in the Rockbridge tournament showcase type thing they had going on up there. Tough competition for the Indians, and things did not go their way. Starting Thursday, they played Willard, who coming into the weekend was the number 1 team in Class 5. Super, super talented team. They're, a consistent force in Southwest Missouri. Really good there outside of Springfield. They beat Jackson big, 19-4 in the first ball game up at Rockbridge. Jackson turns around, plays 3 games on Friday. A busy weekend of baseball for the Indians. A couple of games just couldn't get enough outs. 10-5, they lost to Grain Valley. Played Smith Cotton after that, lost 10-7. So, the Indians are putting up runs, but kind of the pitching, just struggle there for them on that side of things. And then they do bounce back, get a nice victory over a Columbia team up there, Battle. Beat them 10-3. I saw the player of the game on Twitter, or X.com, I guess now, was Max Blackburn. Like I said, you're giving up runs, somebody's got to step up, kind of stop the bleeding. Max Blackburn stepped in, pitched 5 2/3 innings. He had 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, 2 hits, no earned runs. So it's the kind of performances the Indians need. You just got to be it's that consistency. That's just not kind of what they've had. It's been an up and down season so far for Jackson. Like I said, losing, games that they're not used to losing, right? They lost to Cape for the first time in 8 years. They lost to Notre Dame for, I'll say the first time in 4 years, something like that. The first time losing at home in like a decade to Notre Dame. And so, they played one more game on Saturday. They lost to Truman 4-3, closing out the week. Kind of rough fashion there, going 1-4 on the week. It's not where they want to be. It's not where you're used to seeing Jackson. They're 8-10 right now. This is a team that a couple years ago was in the Final Four. Things just not going their way. Baseball's a tough sport. Like I said, you can have all the pieces and, the ball just doesn't bounce your way, or, the other team has somebody hot, or they have a pitcher that's hot. Things just aren't going to go your way. But right now, the Indians, under 500, I'm hoping that they can kind of turn things around. And the back half of this season, it's going to be tough again. They have a very tough week this week, and a lot of, very good opponents. That's kind of what they do. They challenge themselves with, big private schools and teams across the state, try to get themselves ready for the postseason. But right now, those games not going in their favor. So we'll see if they're able to kind of get the momentum going the other direction here this week. But still talking about last week, sport I want to jump into now, boys tennis. Maybe not the sport I talk about the most on here. I want to try to, like I said, give everybody shine that I can, find as many results as I can. And in boys tennis, there was a lot of action going on this past Monday, the 14th of April. Notre Dame defeated Dexter. Notre Dame's playing really well right now. Jackson defeated Windsor 9-0. Notre Dame also beat Dexter 9-0. Cape played Poplar Bluff. Poplar Bluff, maybe the class of Southeast Missouri, you could say. Cape lost to Bluff 7-2. So a tough team there. Jackson then played Dexter, who Notre Dame just defeated. On Tuesday, Jackson beat them 8-1. And then Notre Dame came back, played Sykeston, won 9-0 there as a team. So you kind of see that pecking order starting out. It feels like you got Poplar Bluff and Notre Dame up here, very close to each other at the top. Maybe Jackson a step below, Cape a little bit behind both of those teams there in the SEMO Conference. So those are the results I saw for boys tennis this past week. So shout out to those guys as their season. All seasons, what are we at? We're, over halfway through April. So, we're nearing the end of the school year. So this is the home stretch for a lot of these guys. So you expect them to be playing their best in tennis and every other sport we talk about here. And then moving on, I'm going to talk about some girls soccer. Another sport, very busy this past week, especially Jackson, who had talked about. They had a big road trip. But starting out Tuesday, Notre Dame went on the road, played a tough opponent, St. Vincent. I had said last week, the St. Vincent team is not a team you can just expect to roll over just because, you got Notre Dame on the front of your jersey. You got to go up there. You got to take it. St. Vincent been playing really, really well. They've been beating some pretty big schools, some decent competition. And that's what Notre Dame did. They went up to St. Vincent, went to Perryville, won that game 4-2. It's been a lot of same two names kind of leading the way up front for them. Addison Clippard, Maya at the bow. Both playing really, really well right now, both connecting up front for Notre Dame really well. And that one I saw Addison Clippard had 2 goals, and Maya had 1 to kind of push them over the top. And then, hey, Cape Central knocked off conference opponent Sykeston 2-0. Tatum Frick and Nora Austin got the goals for Cape Central on that one. It's good to see. Like I said, that's another team Cape Central girls struggled to start the season. Maybe kind of getting their legs underneath them a little bit. I know Duncan McKinley, the coach there, said, the struggle right now is just kind of the conditioning. Hey, the last 15, 20 minutes of games, things kind of start going the other direction for us. Maybe you see kind of, they're playing themselves into game shape. That's kind of what I hope this time of year, that they're kind of rounding into form and, maybe hoping to get some things going their direction. Like I said, I want to see all these teams do well. Cape Central, a program in soccer, maybe not on the level of Notre Dame and Jackson traditionally, but a team that's had success. I remember, it's probably been a few years now, but about 4 or 5 years ago, I went and watched them play like sectional quarterfinal game there at Cape Central. So they've had a history of success. They've had really, really good players come through there. And so I'm just hoping that they can kind of gain that form here as the season goes on and, stack some wins. A big win over Sykeston, a pretty solid team in the SEMO Conference. I was impressed to see them put them away 2-0. Then next day on Wednesday, Notre Dame was back out playing Saxony over in Fruitland, the in-county team, in-conference team, I believe as well. Saxony's SEMO Conference. And same story, different day, 5-0 for Notre Dame. It was a game I thought might be pretty competitive, but Notre Dame really steamrolling. Like I said, Maya Thébault and Addison Clippard are really a force right now up front for the Bulldogs. Addison had 3 goals. Maya had 2 in that one. So they are rolling. They're very, very hot right now. That's exciting to see. They feel like they got maybe the toughest part of their schedule kind of behind them. I saw one of the players said, we had a really, really competitive first part of the schedule, and they're right. They played really, really good teams. They've already gotten Jackson out of the way. So I expect to kind of see them start stacking some wins here as the season goes on. Looking at the back end of the schedule, a lot of teams around 500. I'll mention some games coming up that are a little bit tougher, but this is a time period of the year where I expect Notre Dame to start getting a lot of wins, filling up that win column here as the season winds down. And then mentioning the Indians, I had said also last week how the baseball team and the soccer team really kind of challenging themselves right now. They were going on big road trips. Baseball team kind of struggled up at Columbia, and the soccer team had some really, really big-time challenges as well. They went over to, I think it was Kickapoo, so Springfield, Missouri, out west, and played against 3 very, very, very good teams. I think the stat I had was the 3 teams they were supposed to play were 19-3 on the season combined. So first game they played Thursday, they played Timberland. Timberland's from St. Louis. They're undefeated on the season coming in, and Timberland beat Jackson 2-0 in that ball game. But Jackson bounced back, played a very good undefeated Glendale team, and beat them 3-0 on Friday. So big-time result there for the Indians. Their game against Kickapoo was supposed to be Saturday at Kickapoo. That was going to be a big-time test as well. Kickapoo, always very, very good. I mentioned Glendale, a traditional power, produced a lot of next-level athletes, including I mentioned former SEMO goalie Kendra Lears is from there. And the game against Kickapoo, however, got rained out, and there's not going to be a makeup for that. Jackson's not going to go back out there. So kind of disappointing not to just see Jackson play against more good competition, but finished 1-1 on the road trip. Not bad. Probably, if you came out of there with 1 loss playing 3 games, you would be pretty optimistic about it. Still optimistic about how it turned out. Like I said, Timberland, Glendale, all these teams that were over there, very, very, very good. And so coming away 1-1 out of that, I am very optimistic heading into the back stretch of the season. The Indians still have very, very tough games. There's a lot of, we pull up the schedule, a lot of teams well over 500, a couple of undefeated teams, 7 wins, 6 wins teams. So a lot of games left and a lot of tough opponents still on the board for the Indians. The next sport I'll jump into, let's see, I will go ahead and talk about, mention boys volleyball. I mentioned last week how hadn't talked about boys volleyball very much, kind of one of those things. Spring sports, there's a lot, we got into doing this show, in the winter, and there's not a lot of sports in the wintertime. It's kind of easier to keep up with. Cody and I do basketball games for Jackson, so we're seeing all of those games, and then there's basketball, there's wrestling. There's not a lot going on as much. It's a little bit easier to keep track of, but boys volleyball, I mentioned last week as well. Not the most popular sport in Southeast Missouri. Only a couple teams have it. That's Saxony and Notre Dame. Saxony did not play last week. They came off of a big tournament up in St. Louis, and so they have about 10 days off in between games. Good luck to them having to practice that long. That's always no fun when you're in high school. But Notre Dame had 3 games this past week. They dropped the first one 0-2 to Belleville East. They were playing a lot of St. Louis area teams. It's something you'll see a lot for Notre Dame and Saxony. However, they bounced back, played Belleville West, beat them 2-0, and then closed out the week beating Bayless 3-0. So a good week for Notre Dame. Their boys team looking really good right now. I think they're 11-5 on the season is what I had them at. So they're playing really, really well right now. And, they have some more big-time matchups. I know they're going to St. Louis again. And then if you want to see a local battle, I think they might be playing each other next week, but then down here, they'll be Saxony and Notre Dame will play each other the first week of May. So definitely something to look forward to. And then in golf, we had a little bit of bad weather, but I saw at the Poplar Bluff Invitational, Cape Central came in 5th as a team, shot 326, and then Drew Ferguson was the best individual over there for the Tigers, shooting 75. Notre Dame came in right behind them, finishing 6th. They were 7 strokes behind Cape as a team. So good showing for both squads. Playing a lot of local competition, and they kind of bounced back. And a couple of days later, over at Dalhousie, Notre Dame hosted their invitational there. The high-scoring team in the area, Jackson, by a wide margin. A lot of good competition from all over the state. Dalhousie is one of the best golf courses in the state, and so they were able to attract a lot of good competition. And, Jackson really showed up. They finished 5th as a team. Had really, really good individual performances, in my opinion. Jimmy Williams, he was the best among all local guys. He shot a 75 and, led away for a good group of Indians. They all shot better than 80. Jimmy Williams was at 75, Braden Moles, 76. Marshall Earnhardt shot 77, Ian Lambert 78, and Drew Eller came in at 79. So a very, very tight group of Indians there, all finishing one after the other strokes-wise. So a good showing for Jackson. Cape and Notre Dame both kind of struggled a little bit. Drew Ferguson played well again. He shot a 76, coming in right behind Jimmy Williams of Jackson. But as a team, Cape finished 12th. Notre Dame as a team finished 13th. Their leader was Eli Schaefer, shooting an 84, Trenton Schumacher at 86. So a little bit tougher for the Cape teams. However, Jackson, like I said, playing really, really well right now. And a lot of very consistent showings there for the Indians. And the only other, I'll mention Saxony went up to St. Gen. They played on the same day. They finished 17th up in St. Gen out of, 20-something teams. They shot a 386 as a team, so not bad there for the Crusaders. And I guess the last thing I think I have to talk about from this past week is track and field. I mention it just about every week. I really, really enjoy track and field. It is probably my favorite spring sport, as crazy as that sounds. It's a fun viewing environment. It's chill. You just get to go sit outside when it's nice and sunny and hang out. And just, like I said, it's simple. It's easy. Just watch people run. Who's the fastest kid out here? Not a lot to think about. When this is starting to shoot the gun, it's pretty easy. Pay attention to. And there's a lot of action. Like I said, you can move around to the track. You got people on the track running. You got people over here jumping, over here pole vaulting, over there throwing. So there's a lot of action, a lot of open space, usually a lot of fun to watch, in my opinion. Not everybody's opinion, but so this past week, some pretty good performances. I'll start out at the Scott City Open. I mentioned Saxony was going to be there, and I'll just kind of mention their top performers. They had a ton of people there running, jumping, throwing, etc. And so a lot of first-place finishes for the Crusaders. Over on the boys' side, Maxim Mayhew came in first in the 400, ran a 54.14, so nice showing out of him. In the 800, Jacob Shupp finished second at 2:24. In the long jump, Clark Jones was able to come in first. He jumped over 6 meters, 6.02. Nice job for Clark. And then triple jump, Weston Jeter came in first as well, 11.33 meters. So good showing on the boys' side. Some good jumpers and good middle distance there for Saxony. Getting high marks in the 4.8 and then the long jump, triple jump. So seems to be a little bit of a strong suit there. And then on the girls' side, a couple of names I see a lot of every week looking at results. In the 800, Myra Ross came in first at 2:48. And then she turned around, won the 1600 as well, coming in just under 6 minutes. So good job for her, 5:59. A nice time there for Myra, coming away with 2 gold medals. Good overall team here for Saxony. In the long jump, Rebecca Young got first, 4.7 meters for Rebecca. And then Casey Call, one of the better pole vaulters as far as girls go in the area. She's had a really good season. Like I said, every time I look at results, she's always up near the top. She came in first as well, jumped 3.35 meters. And then Rebecca Young, long jumper, turned around. A little bit of a, multi-talented lady there, finishing the javelin in first place, 31.06 meters. So big time, couple of double gold finishers there for Saxony, Myra Roth and Rebecca Young. And Casey Call getting the pole vault victory. So good showing there for the Crusaders over at Scott City. And then up at St. Genevieve, pretty cool, the Taylor Warner Invitational. For those that don't know, Taylor Warner, insane, do-it-all runner for St. Genevieve a few years back now. Makes me feel a little bit old. It's probably like 10 years ago she was in high school. So she was insane. I mean, she won everything, cross-country, 400s, 800s, 1600s, 3200s. She's unbelievable. Went on to Arkansas, was awesome at Arkansas, won, races in the SEC meet. I think she came in second in the 3K or 5K at Arkansas, the NCAA championship meet. So an all-time great there. St. Genevieve, cool seeing her name get put on their invitational up there. But yeah, Notre Dame went up there and performed really, really well as well. Over on the boys' side, I keep mentioning a freshman to keep your eye on, Aiden Morris, distance runner for Notre Dame. He came in first in the 16, ran 4:31 for the freshman. So, I mean, he is crushing it already. He's got a lot of time left. He is going to be very, very big time. I expect to see Aiden Morris, in the state meet probably this year and every year following as long as he's healthy. Then behind him, Jackson Jones finishing second at 4:36 as well. So Notre Dame distance, I mean, it's a tradition they have there. They always have very, very good distance runners. Boys and girls, usually they have a very, very good distance program. I'll get to that in a second. And then the pole vault, Ellis Bruni finished first in 4.09 meters. So good job by Ellis. A couple of gold medals for the boys. On the girls' side, a little bit more hardware than on the boys' side. And then, talking about freshmen, a lot of good young talent over at Notre Dame. 1,600 meter, Martina Ressel, 5:22. A great time for her. She just keeps dropping that PR every week, every month, it feels like. Big time talent. She's going to be a kid who is maybe winning some big time medals up at the state meet over the next few years. Another freshman. And then speaking of freshmen, Jesse Iwachukwu came in first in the high jump, 1.5 meters, long jump, and triple jump champion, Grayson Maurer. So big time jumping by Grayson, a little over 5 meters in the long jump, 10.67 in triple jump. So big jump there. Abigail Spooler came in first in the pole vault, 2.87 meters. And then Mary Human came in first in the discus at 31.24. So that Notre Dame girls team, very well-rounded. Like I said, coming in first in 16, high jump, triple jump, long jump, pole vault, discus. So very well-rounded team over there on the girls' side for Notre Dame. Definitely something to keep an eye on as we get close to, SEMO conference and then eventually districts, et cetera. So, and then not to take anything away from all the kids I just talked about, but then we had a big one up at Kansas over the weekend. The Kansas Relays happened. If you don't know, the Kansas Relays is a very, very big regional meet. And when I say regional, I mean the country regional. It's at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas, and you get some of the best talent from Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, everywhere. There's very, 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 very talented kids that show up every year there and compete. And we had some really big-time performances. I knew just there's a couple of kids that would definitely be there. I talked about last week. And they really, really showed out really well. Some very big-time performances up there at Kansas from local kids. It's tough. I mean, it's huge competition up there. You've got state champions, that are going to be coming in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place in races. You have state champions and maybe the lower classifications that aren't, getting to the finals in some events. So it is a big-time meet, and it produced some big-time performances. I guess I'll kind of start at the bottom and go up maybe. We'll start with, from Jackson, Katarina Ellefson finished 22nd in the javelin. Good showing, 103 feet by her. A nice throw by Katarina. She's very competitive around here in the javelin. Cape Central girls sent a couple of relay teams. Their 4x1 came in. This is what I'm talking about. Their 4x1, so they finished 49.79, a great time. They came in 24th place. You're like, wow, 24th, that sounds terrible, right? No. They are 24th out of 80 teams. So a very good performance by them. In the 4x200, they finished at 147. They came in 14th there out of 34 teams. So once again, a good showing by their girls squad. They will be very competitive and probably the favorites here in the SEMO conference meet and stuff like that in this area. And over on the boys' side, Bryson Wessel of Jackson threw the discus up there at Kansas. He threw 143, 6 inches, and he came in 22nd in the discus. And Warren Eanes in 300 hurdles, 41.62. He's been consistently running really well in the hurdles. He came in 29th place for the Tigers. And then I'll jump over to, we had a 4x1 team from around here. Jackson sent their 4x1. A lot of football players on the 4x1. I think it's, Blaine Reagan, Evan Turley, Jalen Hampton, Memphis Maddox, if I'm not mistaken. And once again, they came in 20th place. They ran 42.77. This team broke the school record in the 4x100 not too long ago. And they came in 20th. Context, there were 83 teams in the 4x1. So a very good finish there for them. And then we get to, some bigger time finishes even, and some individuals who did really, really well. I will start with somebody I had mentioned a few times. Unbelievable season he's having. Kent Sheridan. He has been phenomenal throughout the year. Pole vaulter from Cape Central. He broke their school record in pole vault that had been standing for, close to 20 years now at this point, about 15 years maybe at this point. So he has been jumping, been vaulting really, really well. He came in 4th. It was a tie for 4th. I think there was one kid came alone and finished alone in 1st, and then 2 people tied for 2nd. And then Sheridan came in a 4-way tie for 4th place. He jumped 15 feet, 7 3/4 of an inch. Just another awesome vault by him. He's the class of Southeast Missouri, and I expect him to be very, very competitive once he gets to state time again. I think he got 3rd last year in state, and I expect him to be competing for the gold medal this year. It won't be easy, obviously. He'll have some tough competition, but he's been vaulting really, really, really well so far. So I expect him to have a pretty competitive state meet as well. And then the other 2 individuals you had, I mentioned, I assumed Blaine and Barrett Reagan, a couple of brothers from Jackson. They've both been running really, really well this season. I'm trying to pull this up currently if you're wondering what I'm doing on my phone. They've been running really well throughout the season. I mean, they're, very obviously consistent, sub 50 guys. Blaine had broken the school record earlier this year. He's been finishing just a tad ahead of Barrett throughout the season. But they have been running really, really good times as of late, and they continue to do so. Up at Kansas, Barrett came in 7th. It's me filibustering for how long? Barrett came in 7th, 49-64. Not his best time, but he's been sitting there at 49 pretty consistently. He's been down, I want to say he's been down in the 48s this season, so he can definitely keep going lower, but, I mean, to go up there as an individual, like I said, finishing 7th, huge meet there for Barrett Reagan, but the person you got to talk about, and the person I talk about the most when it comes to track and field season, is Blaine Reagan. I mean, Blaine has been unbelievable at just about everything he's done this year. Came in second in the 400. He came in second as a sophomore behind a senior named Jack Guthridge. He was 5/100ths behind first place. He finished at 47-64. PR for Blaine. I mean, this is the type of meet you need to really push yourself. I know him and Barrett went 1-2 in the last meet they ran at. I think they ran like 49 low, where they are their toughest competition a lot of times around here. So getting up there, running against some very, very, very talented runners, kind of brings the best out in you. It gives you that little bit extra push to, you have somebody you're maybe chasing after, which is not what you're used to doing. But Blaine, phenomenal. It's a PR for him. That's a new school record. He was 47.9 earlier this year, I believe, up at Festus. That was a school record at the time. And that record just keeps dropping lower and lower and lower. And, he said it after that meet. He said he thought he could go 47 low. So he's at 47.6. We'll see if he's able to cross over into 47.5, 47.4, something like that by the time we get around to the state meet. But we still got about a month until that. So, what a season. He has just been running so well. It's been a lot of fun watching him, a lot of fun keeping up with him. And so that does it for this past week. And I guess we can kind of jump into what we got going on this week. And once again, a very, very full slate across the board. I'll start with baseball. Jackson will be taking on a tough Marion team from Illinois. They just beat Notre Dame. I talked about 8-2 this past week. So that'll be a very tough contest. Once again, Marion hit the ball pretty well. They held Notre Dame to 2 runs. So it'll be tough for Jackson. Jackson's kind of been bleeding some runs here up at Columbia. So we'll see if they're able to kind of shore that up and maybe come up with a tough out-of-state game. Busy Tuesday. Cape will be on the road at Windsor. Windsor's 6-8. And like I said, the Tigers kind of hot right now, so maybe they'll be able to go on the road. I definitely think it's a winnable game. It's a game I would predict them to win. Notre Dame taking on St. Pius, the 10th out of Festus. St. Pius 6-6 on the season. Once again, Notre Dame up and down. They beat Jackson in the one game they played, and then they followed it up by 4 straight losses the rest of the week. So got to find that consistency. It's definitely, like I said, a game. They're hosting St. Pius. So it's definitely a game I think that they can win. Maybe get some positive momentum. Saxony, very tough contest. We're going down to Oran, who's one of many, many very, very good small schools kind of outside of Cape County. I've been talking about, I talk about our area, and by our area, I mean very limited to just Cape County. But once you get out of Cape County, there's some very, very good baseball going on. Oran's 7-1, so it'll be a tough matchup for Saxony. Wednesday, another busy day. Jackson goes to Farmington, who's 12-2. That'll be a tough game for Jackson. They'll have to definitely bring it if they want to beat the Knights. Notre Dame will be hosting Kennett, who's now 6-7 on the season. Kennett did fall to Cape at home, so a game that Notre Dame can once again, like I said, be competitive. So if you want to see some Notre Dame baseball, Tuesday, Wednesday, get out there. They're playing some pretty good competition, but competition I think they can, defeat. We'll see. Saxony then is hosting Oak Ridge, who's 6-5. Definitely a game where I think Saxony is the favorite in, so I'm expecting the Crusaders to be able to maybe do some damage against Oak Ridge in that ball game, especially the way their bats have been sometime when they play maybe a little bit smaller schools. And then on Thursday, lone game is Jackson going to Poplar Bluff. Tough matchup again for the Indians. Bluff 9-7. A consistently good team as always. They are always one of the tougher SEMO Conference teams. They're always a team. They expect to be at the top of the SEMO Conference, and so they're right around there again this year to be a tough game for Jackson on the road at Bluff. And then Friday, Cape has a wood bat showcase. So I know there'll be a few teams from around here playing there. Definitely go check that out. Jackson will be playing Fox, who's 9-4. And so, a little bit tougher of a competition there. Notre Dame will be playing Kelly, who's 3-9. Kelly has some pretty good individuals. Like Ross Peters, very, very incredible every sport athlete. But Kelly's sitting at 3-9, definitely a game that Notre Dame could take here. And then Saxony will be playing Caruthersville. Comes in at 9-5. Don't know a lot about the Caruthersville Tigers, but a pretty good record, and I expect them to be tough. A good program across the board in all sports, so I kind of expect that to carry over to baseball. Cape Wood Bat Showcase continues on Saturday, and I know Notre Dame will be taking on Gateway Legacy. I don't know a lot about Gateway Legacy baseball-wise, but we'll see how that goes for Notre Dame. Like I said, they're trying to maybe get some momentum. They have 4 games this week, so and they don't have to go too far. They're going to be playing every game here in Cape, so a good week for Notre Dame to potentially maybe tack on some wins and get some positive momentum here at the end of April. And then Jackson, a big-time contest, are going to Busch Stadium. So after the Cardinals play, shout out Cardinals. Sidebar, I love the Cardinals on the inside. There's a bane of my existence a lot of times, but we're not going to get to that. Drive me crazy. They'll be taking on Jacksonville, Illinois. I just randomly know where Jacksonville, Illinois is. It's like 30, 40 minutes west of Springfield, Illinois. So a pretty long road trip there for Jacksonville coming down. That'll be cool. That'd be a sick environment. Yeah, I went to one of those games about 7 years ago. It was very cool. It's a good deal. I don't know if the tickets are still, what the deal is, if it's still going on. I know the tickets are very discounted for, if you buy them through Jackson, you get to go to the Cardinals game. My experience, we sat in Big Mac Land, and then you get to come down behind home plate around the dugout and watch the high school game. So it's a very cool opportunity for Jackson. They've got to go do it several years now, and it's been a lot of fun, and they've been very good up there. So we'll see if they're they're able to keep that the positive vibes they've had going up there the last few seasons going. That does it for baseball. Over on soccer, a tight middle of the week. No games on Monday, but Tuesday Notre Dame will be hosting Kelly, a game I expect Notre Dame to win, probably win very convincingly. Saxony will be hosting Poplar Bluff, a little bit tougher of a competition, bigger school there, going to Saxony. And then Cape will be hosting St. Pius X. I don't know much about them personally. They are a program I know that's very good in, girls basketball, volleyball. So I expect their soccer. They're 8-2. I know that. They're 8-2 on the season. And so I expect them to be very, very good. Definitely a very tough home game for the Tigers. We're going to see a lot of St. Pius X this week, playing multi-sports, different sports against local teams, and a couple of soccer games around here. Jackson, however, on Wednesday, they're hosting Oakville. Always a tough suburban St. Louis district opponent. Oakville comes in 6-3-1, so that'll be a good test for the Indians. Get to play against somebody you might see in the postseason. And then Cape will be hosting Farmington in a gettable game. Farmington only 1 win on the season. Another opportunity for the Tigers to kind of, like I said, build and get into form for the postseason here is the back end of April. And then last game of the week on the girls' soccer side that I've seen, Saxony will be hosting St. Pius X. So that St. Pius X team, they're 8-2 right now. They'll play Cape on Tuesday, and they come back down, play Saxony on Thursday. Tough matchup, I will say, for the Lady Crusaders. But I'll be rooting for them, hoping for the best. And that does it for girls soccer. A lot of other sports very busy on the track side of things. A couple of meets that I saw. Jackson, I know, will be at Ladue on Saturday, 26th. Big invitational there. I know Ladue as a team has some very talented runners. And so I'm very curious to see what kind of competition comes out for that. Should be tough. I'm hoping to see, everybody come out and being healthy and able to run for Jackson, see how they do. Get some good St. Louis competition. And then Cape and Notre Dame are going up to Festus for the Tiger Town Invitational. That'll be a good meet. Always very competitive. A lot of good runners will be there in the Festus area. You get to see a little bit Cape and Notre Dame compete against each other, though, against some good outside talent as well. Over on the golf side of things, Jackson hosting at Kimberlin. So that'll be big time. Excited to see some of the results out of that, see how the local teams do against each other, and kind of see, just how they compare to maybe some out-of-area competition. And then in St. Pius X, once again, a name you get to hear a lot of this week, hosting Invitational. Notre Dame will be up there. So rooting for the Bulldogs to do well up in Festus. Over on the tennis courts, a very busy week of boys tennis. Hopefully the weather holds out, allows all these matches to occur. Notre Dame at Jackson Monday, big time in-county rivalry matchup there. Notre Dame playing really, really well, have the SEMO Conference individual champion, but Jackson, very gritty, tough squad. See how it goes over at Jackson. On Tuesday, Jackson in action again. They go to Poplar Bluff, who is very good, and it'll be very, very tough. So Jackson, a tough week. Probably the two best teams in the SEMO Conference, Notre Dame and Poplar Bluff. You got to go back-to-back and play. So a big contest for them. The fun doesn't stop. Jackson then Wednesday hosts North County. North County, a little bit of a long trip coming down to Jackson, so go check that out. Notre Dame, they will be hosting Poplar Bluff in what is sure to be a very intense game. These are very intense matchups across the board. These two teams have seen each other now a few times. They keep coming in first, second, every time they're around each other. So that'll be a tough one. Cape is hosting Melville. Melville, always a good competition, coming down from suburban St. Louis, South County as well. Shout out Tony Dees, Melville tennis legend. Thursday, Notre Dame back in action. They're hosting Arcadia Valley, who's a good, maybe a smaller school team, but they'll be competitive. I expect Notre Dame to be a heavy favorite, however, and Cape will go on the road to Potosi Thursday. And then Cape Central hosting a doubles tournament on Friday. Should be a good time. Go over there to Cape Central. They have a nice setup to watch some tennis over there. Go check out their doubles tournament. Should be a lot of local kids, local teams playing in that as well. And the last sport I have to talk about, boys volleyball. Tuesday, Saxony at our good friend St. Pius X. St. Pius X, very good season so far, 7-2. Saxony currently 5-8 on the year, so that'll be a tough trip up to Festus. Wednesday, Notre Dame is at Westminster, so that'll be a tough private school battle for the Bulldogs. And then Friday, the way the schedule shows is Saxony is playing Notre Dame up in St. Louis, and Saxony is playing at Lutheran South on the same night. We'll see if that is exactly what is happening. So we might get our first view of Notre Dame and Saxony playing each other. But regardless, Saxony also listed to play at Lutheran South, who is 8-4-2, so another tough opponent for the Crusaders. And then finally, Saturday, Notre Dame will be playing at the Lutheran St. Charles tournament. So a busy day for the Bulldogs up in St. Charles. Long road trip up there, but a nice area. Go make the road trip if you are a fan, parent, friend, etc. Go check that out. Oh, a lot of action. Like I said, very busy time. Spring sports. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it's also kind of wonky at times where you have to deal with weather. So nothing is guaranteed. Hopefully the weather keeps holding out. Hopefully we stave off the rain or hold the rain to the weekends. So we're able to get some of these matchups in and, see some of these athletes play. And it's been a lot of fun so far. There's always, makeup games to be brought back. I think that Cape and Windsor baseball game is a makeup game. So Always keep your eye on the weather for spring sports, but otherwise, everything I said should be happening to the best of my knowledge this upcoming week. So, like I said, hopefully we get to see it all come to fruition. Otherwise, I don't really have too many other things to talk about. Shout out at the end of the show. I mentioned new baseball rankings came out. Class 4 through 6, there's no big schools, Cape, Jackson, Notre Dame, none of them are represented there. Like I said, small schools, though. If you are living in those communities, definitely go check it out. Some great baseball being played around outside of Cape County. Like I mentioned earlier, Oran, number 1 in Class 1. A fantastic season for Oran. Their power, as always, they're always very good in baseball. Class 2, up north, St. Genevieve Valley Catholic is number 1 in Class 2. Chaffee is number 6. They're 12-0 right now. Bernie is number 10 in Class 2. So a ton of good local talent in Class 2. And then in Class 3, we've got the number 1 team in Class 3 over in Scott City. They are 14-0, undefeated, very talented, loaded team. A lot of fun to watch. They've just been mashing people around the area. They are number 1 in Class 3, and Portageville number 10 in Class 3, another team that's used to having a lot of success, a lot of talent down there at Portageville. So that just about does it for me. Like as always, stay on the lookout. Follow us online, Exit 99 Sports, everywhere you have any social media app you might have. Wherever you're watching, listening, make sure to like, subscribe, follow us, leave a 5-star review, whatever it is to possibly do. We appreciate it. I enjoy bringing all this information, knowledge, not a lot of knowledge, but a little bit of knowledge to you any way I can. And like I said, as always, my only goal is nothing to do with me. It's everything to do with just talking about the athletes, talking about these teams. I don't have to put forth hardly any effort. I'm sitting at a desk and typing. These kids are out, running every day, playing sports, putting their bodies on the line. And, I'm really happy. I enjoy watching them play. It's been a lot of fun. I know I enjoyed seeing people come out. So I always implore you, if you have the chance, go check out some of these local athletes doing great things. There's a lot of games I just talked about, some inside, a lot of outside. So if the weather's nice, go out, check out what these great kids have to do. But otherwise, that'll do it for me. I appreciate everybody watching and listening as always. Thank you for checking us out, and we will see you in the next one.